Ever wondered what it was really like to be a pirate during the legendary Golden Age? Was it all treasure chests, talking parrots, and swashbuckling adventures, like in the movies? Well, batten down the hatches, because we're about to dive deep into the gritty, surprising, and often misunderstood world of real-life pirates. Let's get one thing straight. Life as a pirate was rarely a glamorous choice. Most sailors who turned to piracy were fleeing something terrible. Imagine the conditions on a typical merchant or navy ship back in the 17th and 18th centuries. We're talking about brutal discipline, where a minor mistake could earn you a flogging with a cat o' nine tails. The food was often rotten, filled with weevils, and the pay was abysmal if you even got paid at all. Disease, like scurvy, was rampant, and your captain had absolute tyrannical power over your life. For many, piracy wasn't about getting rich quick. It was about escaping a life of misery and oppression. It was a desperate grab for freedom. So, what made a pirate ship so different? For starters, democracy. I know, it sounds crazy, right? But most pirate ships operated on a surprisingly democratic system. The crew elected their captain, and he could be voted out just as easily if he wasn't doing a good job. The captain's authority was usually absolute only during battle. The rest of the time, the real power lay with the quartermaster, who was also elected. He handled day-to-day discipline, managed the food and supplies, and, most importantly, divided the loot. This was a radical idea at the time, a floating republic where every man had a say and a vote. Every pirate ship lived by a code, a set of articles that every crew member had to agree to and sonore make their mark if they could right. These codes were the law of the ship. They laid out the rules for everything: how plunder would be divided, the punishments for fighting on board or bringing women onto the ship, and compensation for injuries. That's right, pirates had a form of workers' compensation. You could receive a specific payout for losing an eye, a leg, or an arm in battle. It was a far cry from the Navy, where you'd be lucky to get anything if you were maimed. This code, this social contract, is what held the chaotic world of a pirate crew together. Now, let's talk about the loot. While chests overflowing with gold coins were the dream, the reality was often more practical. Pirates plundered whatever they could sell. This meant things like sugar, tobacco, spices, textiles, and rum were just as valuable as gold. They'd capture a ship, take its cargo, and then sail to a pirate-friendly port like Port Royal in Jamaica or Nassau in the Bahamas. There, they could sell their stolen goods, repair their ship, and spend their earnings on, well, exactly what you'd expect: rum, gambling, and a good time. The pirate havens were notorious for their wild parties and lawlessness. Life at sea was still incredibly tough, though. The work was physically demanding, from climbing the rigging in a storm to manning the cannons during a fight. And combat was terrifying. Forget the clean, choreographed sword fights you see in movies. A real naval battle was a chaotic, bloody, and deafening mess of cannon fire, splintering wood, and smoke. The goal was often to intimidate the other ship into surrendering without a fight. Pirates would fly their infamous flag, the Jolly Roger, to strike fear into their victims. A black flag meant you had a chance to surrender. A red flag, that meant no quarter, no mercy. What about their diet? It wasn't always great, but it was often better than on a merchant ship. When they were fresh out of port or had just captured a ship, they feasted. They'd eat fresh meat from captured livestock, enjoy fresh fruit, and drink plenty of captured wine and brandy. But as weeks turned into months at sea, the food situation would get grim. They'd be back to hardtack biscuits, which were so hard you had to soak them in water or grog just to be able to chew them. And scurvy, the sailor's plague caused by a lack of vitamin C, was a constant threat. Pirate society was also surprisingly diverse. While most were English, you'd find sailors from all over the world on a pirate ship. French, Dutch, Spanish, and even escaped African slaves, who found a level of freedom and equality under the black flag that was unimaginable anywhere else. On a pirate ship, what mattered wasn't where you came from, but how well you could fight and how loyal you were to the crew. The Golden Age of Piracy was actually quite short, lasting roughly from the 1690s to the 1730s. What brought it to an end? A combination of things. Governments got serious about hunting them down. They offered pardons to pirates who were willing to give up the life and sent powerful naval squadrons to patrol the seas. The pirate havens were cleaned out, and legendary pirates like Blackbeard, Calico, Jack Rackham, and Bartholomew Black Bart Roberts were either captured and hanged or killed in battle. So, the next time you think of pirates, remember, it's a story far more complex and fascinating than just treasure maps and eye patches. It's a story of rebellion, of brutal reality, and the creation of a unique and surprisingly progressive society on the high seas. It was a short, violent, and desperate life. But for a brief moment in history, these outlaws were kings of their own floating worlds. Thanks for joining me on this voyage into the real life of pirates. If you enjoyed this journey, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. See you next time.